Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. My name is Todd Nesloney. I'm an elementary principal in Texas and author of the book Stories from Web that this entire series is based after. I am so thrilled to bring you another guest and get to amplify their voice and share a piece of their story. And this week, my special guest is my first international guest, and so I'm thrilled to welcome Christopher O'Flynn. So, Christopher, tell everybody who you are.
Hi guys, so as Todd said already, my name is Christopher O'Flynn and I'm a primary school teacher or an elementary school teacher from Cork in Ireland, and I've only been teaching for 3 years outside of college, where I did an initial 4 years of education, and then, as I said already, I'm into my third year and I currently study at master's level for education in University College of Cork, and I must say I've loved every minute of it and can't wait to keep going with it even further.
Awesome. So did you know you always wanted to be a teacher?
To be honest, I had no interest in becoming a teacher when I was up to maybe when I was 16. I had this weird interest in I wanted to join the army here in Ireland. And I mean, it's not like the Irish army would do a massive amount in comparison to other countries. Now, obviously, they still do important work, but I just had this obsession with joining the army for some reason. But then I went on work experience and I was kind of one of those teenagers that I was like, oh, I don't want to just go into some random workshop or into a shop or into a business. And my mom, who's a special needs assistant, she works in a school and she organized for me to go spend 2 weeks in there, where I was in with a teacher called Mr. Foley. I must say, I walked in there and I was like, oh, when will these 2 weeks be over? And I'm not even in the door 5 minutes. And he basically just threw me into the deep end and said, look, you're going to learn to swim by swimming. And from there, he stepped out of the room. He said, look, you could just teach them how to do bubble riding. Start off. That was how I started off. And I was there, oh my God, I have 30 kids looking at me here. I've absolutely no idea what I'm doing. But all of a sudden, I have the responsibility. So, and I mean, I just went away, just drawing away on the board. And they were coming up with their questions. They were so full of energy. And I mean, they really, really just got into the lesson. And the more it went on, the more their energy started feeding off of me and I fed off on them. And it just started going and going. Teacher comes back in, Luke, who's Mr. Foley at the time. He goes, oh yeah, how'd you get on? I said, oh yeah, it was brilliant. He was like, yeah, sure, we'll get you doing another one out tomorrow. He was like, we can do a small bit of maths, we can do adding and subtracting, because the class were only second class at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it just really took off from there. And I mean, when my 2 weeks was up, I can honestly say, I said, I would have done another 2, 10, way more time inside in the school. And I loved every single second. And funny enough, like, I've even met some of the children that were in that very class to this day. They play basketball in my basketball club and stuff like that. And I mean, that's where it all really began, was inside in his classroom. And his own smaller children, they go to the preschool just by the school I walk in. So I see him, I work in, sorry. And I see him almost all the time. And as he still works in the same school, so I see him often. And I mean, it's really down to just that one experience pushed me into becoming a teacher and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. That's such a cool, unique story. And the fact that you still get to see some of those kids and you get to see his own children as well. That's neat. I've heard you mention something a couple of times. In the United States, we call the different groups kids are in as grade levels. So like second grade, third grade. But I've heard you mention it as like second class, fifth class. Is that the way it's organized in Ireland?
Yeah. So essentially we have junior infants, which is their very first. Well, so there'll be preschool, where there may be like early years intervention, or where they might come in at maybe 3, 4 years of age. And they go on junior infants, where it's 4 and 5, senior infants, first class, second class, third class, fourth class, fifth class, which is the class I teach, and then sixth class. And then that's the end of their elementary level, where they go into high school, or as we call it, secondary school. And then they've got first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year. And then they do a thing called a leaving cert, which I think is their SATs in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just before they go into college, then to determine what college they go for.
Wow. So now you are a fifth class or fifth grade teacher. And have you done that all 3 years of teaching?
Yeah. So far, so good. And it's funny because it was the one when I was actually trained to become a teacher, I'd never been in a fifth class or a fifth grade setting. Everything else bar fifth class. And then it's the only one that I've known then in a professional standhold. Do you know what I mean?
I love it. Now you are actually pretty good about tying in different technology and really pushing your kids in the classroom. Has tech always been something you've been drawn to do with kids?
Not always, to be honest with you. I've always used technology, as far as I can remember, you know, whether it's just using the Game Boy back when I was younger, to PlayStations, the PSP, and it gradually just started becoming more and more popular and more advanced. And I get a fascination with technology, and I get a fascination with a lot of things, to be completely honest. But I find that the way it's going is it's starting to become very geared towards enhancing education. And I think lots of people, they think of education, they think of technology, they're look, children they spend too much time on computers, they spend too much time on tablets, which is true a lot of the time. But you can't just let that hold back technology in education. Like, I think when used correctly, and with teachers and students and parents, and if people are on board, they can really enhance the learning experience of all students through technology. I mean, you can take somebody who might have a very limited learning experience inside in a school with a pen and paper, but put in, just say, for example, an iPad into their hands. They all of a sudden have a very, very universal key that's going to open doors and avenues for them for the rest of their lives that without, they may never have gotten that chance. And I mean, there's how many children have gone through systems already, how many countries they've gone through, that they could have excelled in something, for example, say filmmaking. How many filmmakers, I'd love to know, were inside in school and they were told, oh, maybe you're not so good at English, or maybe you're not so good at mathematics. But then if they had the chance to create their own content at an early age, who knows where they could have gone or what they could have been perceived to be at that time. And I think we have a huge responsibility as educators to realize that every child is a genius in their own way. We just need to figure out on what. We need to help them figure out on what. And I think technology, without overusing it, obviously, too much of anything obviously isn't a great thing. But with technology, we seriously have the best chance in our history to make learning as best as possible for all educators, not just, you know, the 1% that they'll always be good no matter what. We have a chance to make everybody good. And I think it's just hugely important.
You know, I feel like you're so passionate about this. I can feel it coming out of you. You know, one thing that I found when I found you on Twitter was a tweet that you had pinned that was just this brilliant idea that I could not believe your fifth graders had done. Why don't you tell our viewers kind of about that?
So yeah, that's basically what we did. Was we used Keynote, which is an application on an iPad, and we used a line drawing animation just to do a self-portrait. So they basically took a selfie of themselves, stuck it onto a Keynote slide, dropped the opacity down to maybe like 30%, and every single child in the class, just with their hands, traced over their selfie, and then used the line drawing animation that really quickly sketches their entire face onto the page. And then we kind of put them all together in a nice completion, and just added some music to it, which happened to have The Shape of You by Ed Sheeran in it. And because the whole idea was the class decided, because Shape of You, and we were kind of drawing the shapes of each other. So we thought it was kind of a nice little use of cognitive pluralism there, in that sense, that we'd have the double meaning and everything. And it really was great. And I mean, they love when we make these tiny little videos of the work that they've done, because in fairness, they do such great work. And it's such a shame that a lot of people, they don't see the good work that goes on in classrooms. But with things like video, that you can just make a short little 2-minute clip, they can share it at home, it could be on a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and they love going home and say, look what we did inside in school, you know, this was excellent, we've never done this before. And I mean, as long as they enjoy it, really, then it really is worthwhile. And then when you've got educational benefit coming off it as well, I mean, win-win.
I love the tie-in to the Ed Sheeran song. I think that's brilliant and a great way to get kids to really buy in.
Yeah, I can't remember which one of the girls came up with it, and it was kind of a light bulb moment, and we were like, oh, it has to go with that.
You know, and Shauna Hudson's watching right now, and one of her questions was, you know, do you struggle with getting parents to see technology as an enhancement of the educational environment, or they just think that it's one more way devices are in front of kids' faces?
To be honest, well, in the school I work in, we work in a disadvantaged area, which we have got 3 different bands. We've got Desh Band 1, Desh Band 2, and Desh Band 3. And Desh Band 1 being the highest is the school that I'm in. So a lot of the parents, I personally haven't found an issue with, they haven't been saying, oh, look, too much use of technology. Because like I did just a quick fire survey inside my class, show of hands kind of thing, of how much time you spend on a tablet. And I mean, one person in my class said to me that he's on it till basically 11 o'clock at night. Second he finishes his homework, that's it. He plays games for half it. He watches videos on YouTube for the other half. And I mean, that's staggering, because on one hand, you don't want them to have an over exposure to technology inside in school when they're getting a huge amount of unnecessary exposure at home. So it's very hard to find that balance, because you, like, for someone like me who really does believe in technology and education, I hate to see it then being overdone in the wrong sense as well when it's outside of education. So how are you trying to promote, like, oh, just say, for example, if you get student A here who's there on the tablet for maybe 7 hours a day outside of school, and you're here then saying, oh, maybe you're going to use it for another 2 or 3 hours inside in school, you know, maybe you shouldn't. And I mean, it is one of the difficulties, and parents hasn't been the biggest issue for me. A lot of the time it's other teachers. Now, other teachers are fantastic in my school, to be honest. Yeah. They really are. And a lot of them all share a very common ethos in our school. But it's still one of those areas, technology and education. There's a lot of debate. There's a lot of, well, maybe they're using it too much. Maybe they're using it too little. Do we have resources? Are they using it appropriately? Are the games worthwhile? Is the pedagogy worthwhile? It's up and down. Personally, I think if we could limit the exposure at home and amplify it inside in school done correctly, that would be probably the best fit. Because, like, I remember having a conversation with one of my lecturers inside in college, and he said to me, he heard a very interesting quote from a teacher and a parent in a discussion they had. And he said, the parent was giving out that their child was taking the tablet to bed to do their homework. But as the teacher said, do you really think that they're taking the tablet they're taking the tablet to bed to do their homework? Because have you ever seen them take a copybook to bed to do their homework? And we all had a bit of a laugh and stuff. But the point was true. If they're going to do their homework on it, they're not going to take it into bed to do their homework. But it still does give that extra, I think it gives an extra edge in education to use technology. If parents can get on board, fantastic. But you need a full circle. You need parents, teachers, students. You need a common understanding amongst them all, really.
What do you find is the biggest lesson you learned becoming a teacher that you didn't expect to learn?
Definitely my first day. My first day when I came into the school that I'm in. And I love the school, and I haven't actually I did 3 weeks in a different school at the end of my first year because I was just covering a maternity leave. So when that teacher then had come back, I moved to another school for just 3 weeks, and then I was re-employed in the previous school. But my first day is a standout moment for learning, really. I mean, I went in here, think to myself, I don't know the kids, I don't know the school that well. And I said, look, I'll just have a get to know me kind of day, you know, a couple of little activities, nothing too major. I just kind of suss out what the kids are like. They'll suss out what I'm like. Yeah, well, the activities didn't last too long because one thing you kind of learn when it's your class and it's all your responsibility, you're no longer a student, is it's all on you. And when your activities run out, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, all right, what'll I do next? They didn't teach me this was going to happen in college. So, and I mean, I remember one particular child came into my class, and I was kind of warned first, is that, look, if you get him on your side, you're going to have a great year. But it goes, if you don't, you're going to have a tough time. And I remember I was kind of going through, and I was like, no, he's not here, he's not here. And next thing, the door was kicked open, and in bursts this student and shouts, guess who's back? You know, real kind of, I'm here. And I was like, okay, he's here. And from that moment, the whole class changed, the whole dynamic. They were all full of energy. They were all kind of rowdy. I was trying to keep them together, but I didn't have enough planned my first day. And it was a huge learning experience. And like everything started coming at me 100 miles an hour. I started to get flustered. All right, what am I going to do next? What are they going to do next? How are they going to take this? If I do this, are they going to say, this is boring? What are we doing this for? Do they know more than I do? Because they've been in school a lot longer in primary school than I've been, because I haven't been there in a good few years. And then all of a sudden, I'm there with my mini whiteboards carrying around, and I fall over a bag and drop all the whiteboards and the markers all over the floor. They're all roaring, laughing. And finally, thank God, the school bell goes and they all head out. And I have to sit down and take a big, huge sigh of relief and say, that was the toughest day I have ever put down and ever will put down. And to this day, it still has, and I hopefully will ever be, because, and I swore from that day on, I am always going to be prepared, no matter what. And it was great to have that happen, because if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have learned probably the most valuable lesson I've nearly gotten since I became a teacher.
You know, I love that you can share all that and then look at it from the perspective of this is the worst that it was going to happen. I know it can't be bad than that, because worse than that, because I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to bring all these things to the table. And preparedness is so important, but it's one of those things that like you mentioned, they don't really prepare you a lot of the times for that in college. It's just like, oh, write your lesson plans, get your things. It'll be enough. And it's like, no, other things happen and things that you can't always plan for. So that's funny. But, thinking about your own schooling, what was school like for you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, growing up for me, it was kind of like we were at that part where education really started to just transform really quickly. With as I've talked about technology already, how that just grew unbelievably quickly, at an exponential rate as how fast that's developed. It's kind of a blur what we did in school as such, as whereas like learning about your maths or we learn Irish here in Ireland. But like one thing I remember friends. I remember all my teachers, down to my junior infant teacher when I was 5 years old, Mrs. Doyle. And if she saw me walking down the road, amazingly would still say, "Hi Chris, how are you? Having a good day?" And she still looks exactly the same as well. I wonder will she be there forever, to be honest, because it's just remarkable. And then you've got passing up through. And I remember all my teachers. My teachers were fantastic. But you have your standout moments, like going away on school trips. Like we were so when we were 12, we went to Disneyland in Paris with our school for our school trip. And I mean, that kind of overshadows everything, remembering, because I mean, you get to go away with all your friends, your classmates, your teachers, you're in a different country, languages you don't speak, going on all these fantastic rides inside in theme parks. I mean, that was just a standout experience, and then we moved on to high school, or secondary school as we call it. And I mean, it's a complete culture change. I mean, we've got all of a sudden we're going from class to class as opposed to staying in the one room. We've got loads of different teachers. We've head teachers. I mean, you're walking around a 13-year-old boy. You thought you were top of the world in primary school. And now all of a sudden you've got adults here who are like 6 feet tall. And you're like, "Oh, please don't hurt me." And it was really, really stand out to be such a big change back for us. And I mean, like there was different subjects, but I mean, the teachers were excellent. I mean, I still see the teachers every now and then. I mean, I actually deal with a lot of them still, because some of my kids would then go on to that school. So it's great to still keep in contact with them, and they love hearing, like, they would see it as a great success that they'd have a student who's gone into teaching and promotes other children to go into their school then as well. And I mean, it's great seeing them. And I mean, I've got a great relationship with a lot of my teachers that I still see around. And I mean, I'd hope that in years to come that I'd have students who come back to me and, whatever they're doing, it doesn't matter how big or small their job is. I mean, I'd love to hear their success coming back, and it really would be amazing.
So, one thing that we struggle with here in the United States is the availability of male teachers in a primary or elementary setting. Is that something that is also a struggle in Ireland, is recruiting male teachers?
Yes, to be fair. I mean, when I went to college, it was for every one male, there were 7 females. Now, I'm not really sure as to why, I mean, there's that perception that mainly teachers are females. But it's certainly improving. And I mean, in our year, I think when I went to college, it was the only year actually that it was less than 1:8, usually males to females. But overall, for some strange reason, they just doesn't seem to even out. And I mean, maybe it's that they find it maybe a bit daunting, or they feel like, oh, I'm not very good with kids. Maybe I wouldn't be. And I know some fellas who always say they wouldn't be great with kids, who are excellent with kids. There's guys on my basketball team, they help out with our academy that are 6 to 9-year-olds, and they are phenomenal working with small children. But if you ask them that they want to be a teacher, they would run the other way, which is amazing, really.
Yep. So you said you coach a little league basketball team as well. Was that a sport that you grew up playing, or something you just wanted to coach when you got older?
No, I still play basketball as well. So, but I kind of try. Obviously, like, I had loads of coaches who were huge influences on me growing up, and I mean, still are a huge influence on me. And I think it's only right, because I was given such opportunity. I've got to help out. I feel like a certain responsibility that I'll always try and give back that was given to me. And I think everybody should try and hold up that. I mean, if you had someone volunteer for you when you were younger, you should try your best. Now, I know it's not always possible for people, but you really should try, and people should try more to help out and ease the pressure off the same individuals who constantly seem to do stuff. Because if everybody gives a lot, it only takes a little off yourself. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, if you've got the same people that they've got to do all the work, they're going to burn out and eventually it's going to fall through. And I mean, that would be such a shame to see happen. And I mean, hopefully it just keeps on getting better and better.
So the question I want to end on today is, what is something that you are really passionate about right now?
I just think that I'm constantly want to promote just stay learning, always keep learning. I mean, I try to tell my children all the time to say, like, look, you got to keep learning, just enjoy it. You know, there'll come a day where you're not in school anymore or you're not surrounded by your friends and you really, really wish that you were. And it goes, embrace the part that you're in. You know, enjoy having the laughs inside in your class. Enjoy if a teacher says something funny that you shouldn't laugh at. Enjoy getting in trouble with your friends when it's just something that's really fairly meaningless in the end of the day. You know, enjoy sitting inside in the class that you think is boring, but then someday you'll have a light bulb and say, oh, yeah, actually, I remember doing that, you know, or constantly want to improve. And even to teachers as well, I think it's so, so important that you stay teachable. I can't remember where I heard about someone staying teachable once, but it really stuck with me that if you as a teacher stay teachable, your that energy will flow off on the children that you have, that they will stay teachable, or hopefully they will. But if you're not going to stay teachable, how can you expect children that you teach, students, anybody you can come in contact to stay teachable? And I mean, it really is a huge, huge aspect. And I mean, I remember watching the TED Talk you did, and you were talking about cheerleaders and the horizons. And I mean, I think that teachers have to stay, they have to be a cheerleader for all their students. And I mean, my mom, she's my cheerleader, you know. And I remember hearing your story, and it reminded me a lot of my mom as well. And I mean, she is there for me every single day, no matter what it is. Even if it's in the morning, wake up, and she's there singing a song downstairs. She's still singing the same songs when I was going to primary school as I'm actually going in to teach in primary school, you know. And she's really there for me. But that encourages me to be there for the students that I have. And I mean, they are your responsibility. You know, they see us almost more than they see their parents.
Right.
You know, sometimes we care for them an awful lot more than, unfortunately, sometimes their parents would. And I mean, that is a huge, huge deal. I mean, we have to try and take our time. We're going to have bad days, but it's very important for teachers. When you're that role model, when you're that light in the dark for some kids, you can't afford to have a bad day. Even on your worst day, you still need to be that bright spark for children. And I mean, I think that is so, so important. As a teacher, you have to be that person that try and elevates the student that's in front of you, no matter what their ability, no matter what their interests. Try and relate to them. If it's something that you have no idea about, and like, I get caught all the time, the girls in my class, you know, they always laugh at me because I don't know what's going on with the Kardashians, for example, or something like that. And I try my best to learn stuff that I don't have anything about, but sure, by the time I've learned it, half the time they've moved on to something else, and I'm like, all right, back to square one here again. But yeah, in fairness, I just think teachers, we've a lot to deal with, but we can't let that get in the way of our responsibility, that we really need to just keep going, push kids to be the best they can be, and hopefully one day it'll all pay off. We may never know their success story, but you still got to try.
And what a way to end this episode. That was awesome. Well, Christopher, I thank you so much. I know when I reached out to you online, you're probably like, who is this guy from Texas in the United States? And why does he want to talk to this guy in Ireland? But, you know, I love the work that you're sharing online. I feel like you are making an impact in kids' lives. And it's evident through this conversation alone just how passionate you are and how it truly is something you're meant to do. So thank you for taking this risk and coming on and telling some of these stories.
Thanks, Millie, for having me, and thanks for everybody who's listening as well.
And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching again on another episode of Tell Your Story. Hopefully this week was another inspirational opportunity to remind you to get out there and be brave enough to tell your story as well, because every story matters. Have a great day, everyone.